Let me start by saying something that might feel rare right now. Take a breath. If you are a US citizen, a green card holder, someone with an H-1B already in hand, or waiting on a decision from USCIS, I want you to know that my goal today is not to scare you. My purpose is not to add to the noise or the panic that you might be seeing all over social media. Instead, I am here to explain what is actually happening with this new executive order on extreme vetting and the H-1B lottery, calmly and truthfully, so that you can separate what is real from what is exaggerated. You have probably seen the headlines by now. Maybe you have watched videos with alarming thumbnails, people shouting about the end of the H-1B program, or articles claiming that everything has changed overnight, and I understand why that would make you anxious. Immigration is already one of the most stressful journeys a person can undertake, and when you add uncertainty on top of that, it becomes even harder to know what to believe. So let me be clear from the start, what I am about to share with you is for informational purposes only. This is not official legal advice, and it is not a substitute for consulting with a licensed immigration attorney who knows the specifics of your case. But what I can do is walk you through what this executive order means, who it affects, and why, for the majority of you watching this video right now, the sky is not falling. Let me begin by addressing what has actually changed. The executive order that has been making waves recently does introduce what is being called extreme vetting for certain categories of visa applicants. Now, the phrase extreme vetting itself sounds dramatic, and that is probably by design. But when you look past the label and into the substance, what you find is that this is not a brand new concept. Vetting, background checks, and security screenings have been part of the US immigration system for decades. What this order does is intensify those procedures for specific visa categories and applicants from certain regions or backgrounds that the administration has deemed higher risk. And yes, the H-1B program has been mentioned in connection with this order, but not in the way that a lot of the viral content would have you believe. The H-1B lottery, as many of you know, is the process by which U.S. employers sponsor foreign workers for temporary employment in specialty occupations. Every year, there is a cap on how many H-1B visas can be issued, and when the number of applications exceeds that cap, a random lottery is conducted to select which petitions will be processed. This system has been in place for years, and it has always been a source of stress and uncertainty for applicants. But here is what you need to understand. This executive order does not eliminate the H-1B lottery. It does not say that H-1B visas are no longer available. What it does is add additional layers of scrutiny to the vetting process for those who are selected in the lottery or who are applying for H-1B extensions or transfers. In practical terms, this means that applicants may face longer processing times, more requests for evidence, and deeper background checks before their petitions are approved. This is not the same thing as a ban. This is not the same thing as saying the program has been shut down. What it is, in reality, is a policy shift that prioritizes security and compliance over speed. And while I know that longer wait times and more paperwork are not what anyone wants to hear, it is important to keep this in perspective. USCIS has always had the authority to issue requests for evidence, to conduct interviews, and to require additional documentation. What has changed is the emphasis and the frequency with which these measures are being applied. Now let me talk about who is most likely to be affected by this. If you are someone who is already in the United States on an H-1B visa that was approved before this order took effect, you are generally not going to see an immediate impact on your status. Your visa remains valid for the period it was granted. However, if you are planning to extend your H-1B, transfer to a new employer, or travel outside the country and re-enter, you may experience additional scrutiny during those processes. If you are someone who has not yet been selected in the lottery, or if you are a new applicant hoping to participate in the next lottery cycle, you should prepare for the possibility that your case will take longer to process and that you may be asked to provide more documentation than in previous years. But here is the part that I really want to emphasize, because it is where a lot of the confusion is coming from. This order is not targeting everyone. It is not a blanket policy that applies equally to all visa categories or all applicants. The extreme vetting measures are being applied more heavily to individuals from certain countries, individuals in certain industries, and individuals whose backgrounds or employment situations raise flags according to the criteria set out in the order. For the vast majority of H-1B applicants who are working for well-established U.S. companies, who have clean records, and who have been transparent and thorough in their applications, the process may be slower, but it is not impossible. In most cases, if your petition is legitimate and your employer is reputable, you will still have a pathway forward. Let me also take a moment to talk about the difference between a delay and a denial, because this is something that causes a lot of unnecessary panic. A delay means that your case is taking longer to process. It means that USCIS is reviewing your documents, conducting background checks, or waiting for additional information. A delay does not mean your case has been rejected. A denial, on the other hand, is a formal decision that your petition has been refused. And even in the case of a denial, you typically have the right to appeal or to refile with additional evidence. The U.S. immigration system is slow, and it is bureaucratic, and it can be incredibly frustrating, but it is also structured. There are rules, there are processes, and there is due process. This is not a system where decisions are made randomly, or where your fate is sealed overnight. I also want to address something that I see a lot in the comments and in the messages I receive, which is the fear that this is just the beginning, that more restrictions are coming, and that everything is going to get worse. And I understand that fear, especially if you have been following immigration news for the past several years. But here is what I will say. Immigration policy in the United States has always been subject to change depending on the administration in power. That is the nature of executive orders. They can be issued, they can be revised, and they can be overturned. What that means for you, practically speaking, is that while it is important to stay informed and to be prepared for potential changes, it is equally important not to let fear paralyze you or cause you to make hasty decisions based on speculation. So what should you do right now if you are in the middle of the H-1B process, or if you are planning to apply? First, stay organized. Make sure that all of your documents are up to date, that your employer is prepared to support your petition, and that you have copies of everything you have submitted to USCIS. Second, be patient. I know that is easier said than done, but the reality is that USCIS backlogs and delays are normal, even in the best of times, and they are even more common now. If your case is taking longer than expected, that does not necessarily mean something is wrong. It may simply mean that your case is being reviewed more thoroughly. Third, if you receive a request for evidence, respond to it promptly and completely. Do not ignore it, and do not assume that it is a sign that your case is in trouble. In many cases, an RFE is just USCIS asking for clarification or additional documentation, and if you provide what they are asking for, your case can still be approved. And finally, if you are feeling overwhelmed, or if your case is particularly complex, consider consulting with an immigration attorney. I know that legal fees can be expensive, and I know that not everyone has the resources to hire a lawyer. But if you are in a situation where your status is uncertain, or where you are facing a potential denial, having professional guidance can make a significant difference. An attorney who is familiar with the current policies and who has experience navigating USCIS can help you understand your options and advocate on your behalf. Let me also take a moment to speak directly to those of you who are waiting for decisions, not just on H-1B petitions, but on green card applications, adjustment of status cases, citizenship applications, and other immigration matters. I know that the waiting is hard. I know that every day that passes without an update feels like an eternity. And I know that when you see news like this, it is easy to spiral and to assume that your case is going to be delayed or denied because of policies that you have no control over. But I want you to remember this. The majority of immigration cases are processed and approved every single year. The majority of people who apply for visas, for green cards, and for citizenship do eventually receive them. The system is slow, and it is imperfect, but it does work for most people. I also want to acknowledge the emotional toll that this journey takes. Immigration is not just a legal process, it is a deeply personal one. It affects your ability to work, to live with your family, to plan for your future, and to feel secure in the place you call home. And when you are in the middle of it, when you are waiting and hoping and worrying, it can feel incredibly isolating. But you are not alone. There are millions of people going through the same thing, and there are communities, both online and offline, where you can find support and information. Do not be afraid to reach out, to ask questions, and to share your experiences. The immigration journey is hard, but it is one that many people have walked before you, and many are walking alongside you right now. So let me summarize what I want you to take away from this video. The new executive order does introduce additional vetting measures for certain visa categories, including H-1B applicants. This means that the process may take longer and may require more documentation, but it does not mean that the H-1B program has been eliminated, and it does not mean that your case is doomed if you are part of the process. For most of you watching this, especially if you are working with a legitimate employer, and if your application is complete and accurate, you will still have a path forward. The system is slow, and it is going to require patience, but it is not broken beyond repair. Stay informed, stay organized, and stay hopeful. And if you found this explanation helpful, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know where you are in your immigration journey, what questions you have, and what topics you would like me to cover in future videos. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are not alone in this.